Hey, and welcome. This is Wisconsin Shoe Guy. Today we're going to take a look at Tier 3 shoes. There's going to be some variants here. You're going to see me wearing a sport coat with a beard for part of it, and then you're going to see some close-ups that I did just to make sure that you've got a really good quality look at each of the shoes. So I also noticed that some of the sound may be a little bit hinky, and I apologize for that. I can't re-record everything. This is more having to do with the fact that I mumble than it has to do with the fact of the quality of the equipment. But I do apologize, and hopefully it's not so bad. Welcome to Wisconsin Shoe Guy. Here we do unboxing videos. We discuss general shoe knowledge. We do worth the price videos as shoe reviews. And we will do shoe battles, comparing shoe to shoe so that you can understand the differences. I also speak to experts in the field. So here we are. We're going to take a look at a number of different brands today. And really I want to talk about the brand, talk about what it's known for. And this is in no particular order. I've separated the shoes based on the shoe type. But I have multiple types for each brand. And I really decided I was just going to try to stay with it kind of classic here. Now, some of the brands I only have one shoe of. But when I have multiple shoes, I try to use a shoe that's still in production. Because some of these brands are quite large and have a lot of shoes and are always discontinuing shoes and always adding new shoes. So I want to make sure that we're kind of true to that. So with that, we're going to start off with Mezlan. And this is the Mezlan Cortana. It's a loafer with an apron. And I like the way that it has a kind of a chisel toe on this. It's also one of their Goodyear welted shoes, which is many of them are Loake stitched. And they did a blind stitch on this, and they have a beautiful fiddleback waist and narrow waist on this. It's actually not really that narrow; it's kind of wide, but it is an interesting example. They also have this beautiful patina that they actually create in the factory. So it's it's kind of a cool way of looking at the brand. Now, what am I not showing for the brand? Most guys that I know that collect Mezlan shoes are very, very focused on exotics because Mezlan is a great brand to try if you want to get into exotics without heavy investment. So where Carmina will charge $3,500 for an alligator shoe, you can often find one at Mezlan for $1,000, or sometimes even less. So it's an interesting way of being able to get into that line, and they make pretty good quality shoes. So I have no complaints about this. Everything about this shoe has been relatively good. The lining is really nice. It's probably chrome tanned and not veg tanned, but it is soft. It is undyed. They have the heel, even the shoe trees are relatively standard. They have a really soft suede in the heel, which helps for me because I do have problems with my heels slipping in loafers. And I had the opportunity to try these on in store, and I still have a little bit of problem with slip. That's probably just me and loafers in general. So something to kind of keep in mind. I did actually try the size smaller and was not able to make it work. So that is Mezlan. Good brand, solid quality. Finishing is what you'd expect for the shoe, right? These are loafers, so there's no fudging on them. But the sole work is actually, they beveled the entire sole, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, what they've done here, both artistically and functionally on the sole, is beautiful, beautiful stuff. The patina on the top is very, very good. The shading, all of it really just on point. So very, very happy with this. And the quality of the leather, which is the most important thing, is very good. So this is the Mezlan Cortana. You can see the finishing here. It's pretty nice, pretty consistent. I like the way that they have a beveled edge along the side. Then, of course, the 270 welt, excuse me. Patch on the back, which I'm not always a fan of. The sole work, pretty detailed. You got the nails, you got a little bit of broguing, you got the fiddleback, and a nice heel. And this beautiful hand-stitched apron, which looks nice as well. Now this is made in Spain. Now the next one is also made in Spain. This is Cobbler Union, which is out of Atlanta, but they're made in Spain, and they're very, very solid shoes. Now their trees are a little different. They're split and they're really short. Um, so not a super fan of those. But they have a beautiful heel pad in every shoe. The linings are red, kind of like the heel pads, and but the shoes themselves are actually pretty good. Now, from a service perspective, they took a long time to get. They had some quality issues that they resolved on their end before they sent them to me, which is always good. But overall, they took a while. They're Goodyear welted, but they have a pre-stitch on the storm welt, which makes them look like they might be Norwegian welted, but they're not. Um, they're symmetrical, so you don't get any of the comfort from the asymmetric lasts. The lasts are not all standard like this. You've got some pretty nice chisel lasts, pretty wide variety. Their whole cuts look absolutely fantastic. The leather quality is good on these, and this is a grain. It's not super soft, but it is pliable, right? And what I've heard from folks who have some of the whole cuts or some of the Oxfords is that it does break in really quickly. So pretty good kudos to there. I do have some problem with heel rubbing, and I've had to wear blister pads in these in order to break them in. But they're a solid shoe, and been fairly happy with them. Like Mezlan, the whole range is between 375 and $500, so the range is pretty tight, and they fit well into it. Now, the one thing that you'll notice is that they do have Vibram soles instead of day-night soles, which are generally considered by cobblers a step up. And I can tell you just from the feel of these, they feel like they're a step up. So whether that's true or not, they feel really good, and I think that that's important. This is the Cobbler Union UR. It's in a nice country grain. You can see the Goodyear welt is done pretty well. What I mentioned in the other part is where you can see the pre-stitching. Almost looks like a Norwegian welt, but it's not. All signs point to this being a Goodyear welt. Now what's interesting is there is a midsole between the welt and the rubber sole, but it's very, very thin, almost as thin as the welt, which is kind of weird. Again, the patch, although the patch is pretty common on this style, you can see that this piece of leather is the same as this piece, which is usually a sign of higher quality. And then you've got the swan neck version of this as well, where this is very rounded. So overall, a very beautiful shoe. And the only downside, as I said before, is that it hurts my feet. So next, we're going to get into, this is the TLB Artista line. And this is the 121, which is their Adelaide. I had this done in a Vegano brown calf. And it's available in a couple different leathers. You can also go onto the MTO side and customize it so you can get your choice of, 25, 30 different colors and materials. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous shoe. This is the Picasso last. All of them will look the same no matter what it is. And it has a really nice rise. It has a really nice chisel on the toe here. The shape of the overall sole is very good. They've got this beautiful, narrow, beveled waist. I think they call it a fiddleback, and it is pretty fiddled. So pretty nicely done here. They've got very narrow heels on a 270 welt. The clicking is good. The level of skiving that's done in between pieces is very good. So you're not feeling huge bumps and stuff as you go. Generally speaking, I'm going to say that this is probably within the entire grade the most shoe you get for the money. They have this really, really tight 1 millimeter fudging along the edge, and they do just a beautiful job. So a really, really high quality shoe. Couldn't be happier with this. The lining is atrociously soft. It's very nice, and overall couldn't be happier. Now there are some small things, like Every now and then, there's still a piece of plastic that's in there along the welt from when they cover it, when they're actually dyeing it. That's something that they do. And so you might have to go in and cut that out. And obviously, I see it right now. I've had the shoe for over a year. It doesn't bother me, and I probably should have polished it a few more times and would have noticed when I did that. So that is the TLB Mallorca. Now, so this is the TLB 121. One of the first looks at a new brand that I did in my collection. You can really see that this they've done a nice job with this leather. This is just plain brown Vigano, and there's just a lot of really good elements in the skin that I think make it look really good. It really has a lot of differential in the light, which I like. I had done some coloring on the brogues, but that has come off really well. So now the sole on this has a very narrow waist, really solid work, no nails. The last on this, what I really like is the way that it has those rises on the side right here, and also has a rise here that way. I like it when it has the combination. This is one of the first shoes that I had that. Really kind of reminiscent of Crockett and Jones and Alfred Sargent and some of the other very traditional English brands. You know, George Cleverly. Really much more expensive shoes that have similar things. One of the things I talked about was how the fudging on this is very good, and I think that is interesting to see. It's a I actually bring the light over here. A little bit easier to see if I do that. So it's a lot nicer than you can necessarily see easily. Now, one of the things that's interesting about these really narrow waists is that a lot of times what they'll do is they'll do the Goodyear welt 180 degrees, and then here they either peg it or they use a Blake stitch underneath that you can't see, but the fastening here is always a little different when it's a very narrow waist because there's no room to sew it, right? So that's something that I learned recently that I thought was interesting. This is a patina shoe. This is part of the Carlos Santos Handgrade line. Also, right in the same price point. This is the same style, but a very different shoe from Carlos Santos. Now, what you'll notice about this is that the leather is noticeably thinner than the TLB. Not bad thin, just thin. And if you, when you first get it, it's probably what I'll call over polished on the whole shoe. So you got to take some of the polish off, especially on the vamp and the main parts. Leave it on the toe, or you can build up the polish on the toe. But it's a beautiful patina, and you have your choice of patinas. You can get a bunch of different ones here, and they do a really nice job with the. They have a good bevel waist, solid blind stitch on the sole. It's beautifully painted as well. The skiving on this is a little rougher. They're not necessarily as careful as they are on the TLB. The fudging on this is a little bit larger. It's not super large. It's actually a little confusing because it looks a little choppy because you can see the stitch holes, but the skiving doesn't, or the fudging doesn't necessarily go across all of it. Kind of looks like they did the wheel, but they didn't do the wheel quite as carefully as you see some makers do it. So it's a little bit different there, but it is a very, very nice shoe, very well put together. And as much as I thought that the thinness of this was going to bother me, it really doesn't, and it doesn't wrinkle or anything like you would think it might. So a really good, solid shoe, probably something I would wear in warmer weather than the TLB, which is just the nature of living in Wisconsin. I do get cold weather. And you still need to go to work with dress shoes, so sometimes the thicker leather just is warm. So
Now here's a more traditional 270-degree welt. And you can see that the stitches start all the way back here, go around. You can see how the this is kind of a funky fudging, which I was talking about before. Getting a lot closer there. Now this has the same toe I was talking about on the TLB. It's a little bit more pronounced. And as I said, the leather is thinner to the point where it might not be quite as warm, but it's all very nice, certainly lasting very long, and not providing excessive creasing or anything. And here, take a look at the sole. Again, no nails. Nice bevel / fiddle back here. They do a nice job, Carlos Santos. The heel, the seam here. I really prefer it when they have a small seam or no seam than when they have the full seam. That seems to be a trademark of certain certain clicking groups within the English shoemaking groups that they prefer to do when they do the no seam. So
moving on, the next brand I want to talk about is Loake. This is the Loake Evans, which is part of the Loake 1880 Legacy range, and a really good, solid shoe. It's an open channel, so you'll see that you get into that a little bit as you get into this part of the price range. You have a again, the skiving is not necessarily done very fine. The clicking and so forth is actually pretty good though. They have a small seam at the bottom here. And the way that the whole shoe is set up, it has a little bit of asymmetry in the last, which is nice, but it's not extreme, and it has a pretty nice shape to the last for being a really a round shoe, right? So, but you know, the way it flares out here is kind of nice. It's just an overall solid shape to the shoe and a pretty good shoe. Now, this is not at the level of construction of, say, the export grade, but it is a very, very fine shoe. And I would put this head to head with Allen Edmonds and the like too. Excuse me, and the like. And I would put this head to head with Allen Edmonds and the like.
Now we bring over to Loake. This is an interesting shoe. This is the Loake Legacy line we talked about. Pretty plain, which is the point of an austerity brogue, right? And this is an austerity Adelaide. And you can see it creases a little bit above the cap, which I'm not a fan of, but happens. No fudging at all. But very, very dense, high quality, and has a really nice transition here from where it's ironed, and you can have that bottom ridge, and then where it's beveled. The sole itself, you can see they took time to do a lot of the detail. So just overall, very good quality shoe. A lot of creasing on the leather, which is not uncommon for this particular type of box calf. And again, that's not necessarily a mark of poor quality, but can be fit and can just be the type of leather. This type of leather just creases like that, and that is not considered bad, by the way.
Next, this is a Sons of Henrey shoe. This is the Sons of Henrey George, and this is in a walnut museum calf. This is an absolutely beautiful shoe. They've got a really nice joining in the apron here, where they just take the two pieces and they sew them together and have it stick up a little bit, which I like. They do the reverse toe. This is, you know, your whole cut. The blucher is really sewn on here, so it's just an overall nice look. You can see that the tongue and the apron are the same piece. Overall, it's just a very, very well constructed shoe, very solid. They have a nice heel cap on the back, and they have a really beautiful blind stitch sole. The stitch density on this is really good, and overall, I would say that it's a well-made, solid shoe, comfortable, and wears well. So again, this is Sons of Henrey. This is the George. This comes in a lot of different materials. They have a pretty good line of Oxfords. Sons of Henrey is a really small company. Is really just one person, and he sends out to a factory that he commissions to make the shoes. But they do nice work. He's got pretty good quality control, and he has his eyes on the leather that they use to make the shoes, and does a really good job. I actually recorded an interview with him. His name is Tom Brown, and if you go through my playlists, take a look at it under General Shoe Knowledge. There is really, really good information on learning about leather included in that interview. So something to think about.
All right, so now we're going to look at Sons of Henrey. Now this is Museum Calf, which doesn't necessarily show as well in this lighting. Try to get a little bit. If I bring the light over, really doesn't make a difference. You can kind of see it. But the picture that I actually took from their website is this shoe. Very good on the details. So we're going to zoom in here. You can see the stitch work here underneath that ridge. This is where they sew the apron, the two pieces of leather together, which is nice. You can see the reverse there. Here you can see the finishing work that they've done. No fudging, 270-degree welt. The sole really holds together well, not wearing quick. I've not worn this a tremendous amount, but it still holds together pretty well. Worthy of note anyway. Great stitch density here on the heel caps, or counters as they're called. Just really beautiful leather. The inside lining is pretty soft. It's nice undyed leather. Pull this off. See the way that this all comes together. Just pretty nice. Sorry. Pretty nice overall shoe.
So now, other split toes. Now, many of you are probably wondering, hey, what about Alden Edmonds, right? And Alden Edmonds makes good shoes. They make really consistent, and I know a lot of people are going to beat me up for this, but they make a consistently good shoe, okay? And they make a lot of shoes. I mean, they're probably pushing out, I don't know, 2,000 shoes a day, right? They're a big outfit, and they make a lot of shoes in the American market. They've got 30 plus stores, and they're just a stalwart in the American market, and they do pretty well. This is the Del Rey, one of their oldest and most established shoes. It is a split toe. It is your basic whole, basically one piece of leather on each side. Of course, they have this split and then the apron in between. And they do a single seam here, and they do a single seam here, and they do a machine stitch top on the apron where it's kind of like a French connection. And it's just a very good, solid looking shoe. They make this in, I think, 4 different colors. And occasionally they have these events where you can customize shoes as well. And this is something that I would definitely, if it came available and I could customize this shoe, I definitely would. It is absolutely beautiful. Now, I've probably had 100 pairs of this brand over the course of my life, mostly because I live about 90 minutes from the factory, and I could get out there for tent sales. When I first started wearing shoes, my wedding shoes were Alden Edmonds Park Avenues. So I have a lot of history here. And I would say that overall, one of the greatest things about this brand is that they do use high quality premium leather, and it is comfortable. And I actually posted on the Allen Edmonds enthusiast the other day and said, why is it that every time I buy a pair of Allen Edmonds, it fits my foot and it feels great all day long. And a lot of these other brands, I have to break in, I have to use heel cushions and blister patches and all these other things in order to be able to wear the shoes. And yet with Allen Edmonds, I don't. And I'm not sure whether that's just sizing or whether or not that's the quality of the leather. But I tend to think that it has more to do with the quality of the leather and the fact that they're just putting out a consistently great product. So that's now they're not expensive, and this is by no means a high-end shoe, but it is a very good, solid performer, and you can get them on sale. They do have a lot of sales, kind of part of the whole American sale culture. And so where they start at $395, $425, it is not uncommon to be able to find them for $250. So something to consider there.
This is the Allen Edmonds Del Rey. Now get a little closer there with the lighting. It's just a very good looking split toe. Your traditional sense, as I said before, you've got your nice machine stitch here. Really kind of a tops down. Really nice double row of stitching. Interesting reverse stitch there on the toe. You look at the sole, the top of the welt, the edge. See, the stitch density on these is actually pretty good for an Allen Edmonds. You see it a lot better on the sole, of course. Allen Edmonds never closes the sole. It's just part of what makes their ethos. They always leave it open. And what I said about hole cut really goes across. And this is their dark chili color. So you can polish it with Hermes red, you can polish with mahogany. I tend to go back and forth between the two. And as you can tell, it needs a refresh pretty soon. I did not brush these today, so sorry about that.
Now, we've talked about shoes made in Spain, shoes made in England. The Loakes are made in England. The Carlos Santos is made in Portugal. And then these are Paraboot Avignons, and they're made in France. And France has a really good shoemaking culture. They do a really good job. This is a Norwegian welt split toe and has the French apron, which is not surprising. Has a really nice reverse long toe on this and has a double top line. And just in general is a great shoe. Now, the way that they have it, which is kind of weird, is they have a stitch here on the inside of the heel, and then it's one piece of leather all the way over to the split, and then this is also to the split. Now, I have a pair of St. Crispins. It's done the same way. There's nothing wrong with this, but it is atypical of this particular design, especially with the double top line. And I do like the way that these shoes look. I like the way they feel. And then Paraboot is best known for their rubber soles. My wife, this is her favorite pair of my shoes, and it's because it does not make noise when I walk around the house. And so I do a lot of walking, and she likes these better because of that. Now, this is machine Norwegian welted and has that type of construction with a welt, which is not necessarily all that common, but it's only a single line as well. But it is, and then of course they stitch into the sole. So good shoe, very nice.
This is the Paraboot Avignon. This is French. Has the good double stitching at the top. Very, very fine reverse stitch at the toe. This is the Norwegian welt. I'll zoom in on. And this is a machined welt. It's very different from hand welting in Norwegian style. This is not Norvegese. But it is a classic method for constructing shoes. And then you can see that they have a standard sole stitch going into the rubber through the welt as well. Some people think that this is like a pre like a pre-stitch, like you saw on the Cobbler Union earlier. But this is different. I mean, this is a construction method that they use at Paraboot. So I tend not to think that they're lying about it. So, and this is very consistent and clean, where the other one was kind of dirty. So, good clean shoes. Of course, the Paraboot is best known for their rubber soles. It's become a part of their brand since before the First War. So, if you have some time, check out their website. It's an interesting look.
Now, back to England. This is a Barker shoe. This is actually an Edward and James, which is made by Barker. And actually, if you look at the insole, it actually says by Barker. And if you look at the sole itself, this is the top end of Barker's line, where they actually laser engrave the Barker story into the sole. Now, this particular shoe happens to be made out of shell cordovan, but Barker is very, very liberal. The use of materials for their shoes. They have shoes that incorporate tweed, all types of different materials in the way they do them. They tend to take style on its ear. Sometimes, in my opinion, they may push a little bit far, but they're putting out a quality product at a reasonable price. They put out a lot of shoes. They're probably the same size as Allen Edmonds, if not larger. And they do pretty good work as well. So never any complaints in terms of quality. Just a lot of the styles that I can't really identify with, but I know a lot of guys do. They actually have a really cool shoe that every different piece of the shoe is in a different color. So it's it's really colorful. I think it's got 7 colors. They just do a lot of really cool, kind of on the edge of. I've seen some reviews that say on the edge of good taste, but and it all depends. Everybody has their own thing that they like. I've seen a lot of their shoes that I would wear, and I've seen a lot of their shoes that I wouldn't wear. Now that said, I feel the same way about Allen Edmonds and many of the others, right? So that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But I do want to point out Barker is a great brand and does have a lot of options within this price point between 375 and 500.
And now we have Barker. Now, Barker is an interesting brand. They have all kinds of different shoes, and they have a ton of different designs and styles. They work with fabric and leather. This is actually something that was commissioned for them by a sub-brand called Edward and James, which is the house brand of Pettaware shoes out of the Dales. And they have this really cool medallion on here, which I really like. The shoe that I put in the description there was not this. This is the Calvé. I wanted to put a Barker branded shoe in there, just so you were able to see something from their line. This is actually a shell cordovan shoe, which I would not have included in this, but it is my only example of a Barker. And you can see it has the Barker brand on it, as well as the Barker story on the sole, as I showed earlier. So, and it's an interesting thing. Now, this is part of their Icon series where they have that sole. So it's not something that they put on all the shoes, and that is not something that's on the shoe that I showed. But I still think it's representative of the brand in terms of construction quality, etc. As you look at the weld, you can see they do a nice job on the top and on the bottom. This is very similar to, 1980s U.S. shoe company stitching. So, good quality product. This just happens to be an example in shell cordovan.
Now, with that, we're going to end on this. This is the J. Fitzpatrick shoe. And a quick story about Justin Fitzpatrick does a blog called the Shoe Snob Blog. And that's really where I started learning about shoes a long time ago. Have been reading him for years. And he created his own shoe line. And, I've been following him. And so I tried out a few pairs. And they're good shoes. He chose his factory in Spain really, really well. And he has gone from trying to make the same shoe everybody else has to going back to his roots of trying to make shoes special and using his good taste in order to kind of push the edge of the envelope. And where Barker kind of goes to extremes on that, I'm very much aligned with the way Justin Fitzpatrick sees good taste and good taste in combinations and so forth in shoes. So very, very happy with it. I kind of view him as the poor man's Gaziano and Girling. G&G makes fantastic shoes, but you have to really like their styles to like them. They're not necessarily what you would consider typically English. And Justin Fitzpatrick is the same way. He is not a typical American shoe. He's not a typical Italian shoe, and he's not a typical Spanish shoe, but his shoes are great. And this austerity brogue with the triple stitches and the fact that it's in polo suede, the overall lapse shape, just everything about this shoe appeals to me. And I really like it. I think it's a great example of what makes Justin Fitzpatrick's shoes great. And if you haven't tried them, definitely worth a look. They do blind stitch soles. They have both dark and light soles depending on the color of the shoe, as you'd expect. And the quality of the soles, they last, right? I mean, I had a few pairs for a couple of years, and they never wore down at all. So I really can't say anything bad about them. So great shoes and a great brand. So that is the brands that we're going to talk about as part of the tier 3. I'm interested in your feedback. Let me know what you think. Thanks.
Now this is the J. Fitzpatrick Pullman. This is the suede version that they discontinued after the season. The example that I put up before is a leather version. They have that is still in production. They may bring this back, they may not. It's a very, very great example of very cool craftsmanship and just a very interesting design. It's very bold with the stitching. And as an austerity brogue, it just has a nice set of lines to it. You get the nice line of the shoe there. Just really very, very good looking shoe. You can see the sole stitches and the fudging. Again, the fudging is right on the edge here, and it doesn't go any further. So it's not covering the stitches at all. It's kind of like it was an afterthought and like, oh yeah, we ought to put some fudging on. So now it looks a lot better than its competitors at this price point, except for TLB. So 270 welt, very good narrow heel, small seam there as well. What do you think?